to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman, and I'm very happy that you're joining us this week. So every week as you tune in, you know, the word change, no matter whether we choose the change or change is thrust upon us, sometimes it can be pretty difficult to navigate. So in the show notes, you'll find my communication style assessment. It's my gift to you. You will get the 2 reports. One spotlights your natural communication superpowers. Understanding how your message is landing, kind of important, especially when we're navigating change. You want that communication piece to be really easy and clear. Flip side, when you're communicating with someone 180 degrees differently than you, that could be a potential blind spot. So you'll get a secondary report with whatever your lowest score is, again, shining a light on hopefully avoiding any blind spots in the future to create that ease with all communication. So again, the link is in the show notes, my gift to you. Now, my motivational quote today to set the stage for my guests and my topic is by Steve Maraboli. And Steve says, "The victim mindset dilutes the human potential. By not accepting personal responsibility for our circumstances, we greatly reduce our power to change them." You know, and it's kind of sad, but all too often I hear my clients say things like, you know, Connie, I had no choice with X situation. So, you know what? I put my head down and I just keep on working. And I have to tell you, it makes me pause when I hear this because I've learned that we always have a choice. Sometimes it may feel like we are victims of whatever the circumstance or the situation, but the choices in front of us may not be easy to see, understand, or navigate. But at the end of the day, there's always a choice because we're in control of our own lives, business, career, whatever it is that you're navigating. So who is my guest today that we're going to have this follow-up conversation? So his name is Dave Neagle, and he is back for the second time. And we're really going to dig deep into this notion of how to move from victim to victor. Now, David is a speaker, best-selling author, founder of the multi-million-dollar global consulting company Life Is Now, Inc., and host the Business Daily News ranked podcast. It's called The Successful Mind. Make sure you tune in. And being in the personal and professional development industry for over 20 years, David's helped tens of thousands of students across the globe gain that confidence and find the right mindset needed to increase their revenue, turning their endeavors into 7 and even 8-figure ventures. So please help me welcome David back for the second time. So Dave, thanks for being on again. Our last conversation was pretty cool, so we figured we should do another show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, love it. And just Dave, for you, but for everybody listening also in the show notes, I'll make sure I put the link to that first show. It's worth going back and listening because we did kind of a big picture and now we're going to get a little bit into the weeds. So I'll put that link as well in the show notes. So let's take a step back. So you mentioned in the last show, the victim mentality and the drama triangle. And you gave my listeners at that time some examples of what victim mentality looks like. But can you break down exactly what that drama triangle is and how it plays that role in our own self-sabotage?
Well, the drama triangle was created by Dr. Cartman in the 60s, and he was a pattern that he noticed that victims consistently stayed in. Then the problem with it is that when you're raised with the idea of being a victim, there's only 3 options that you can come from as far as your perception in your world, right? So it's the victim, the persecutor, or the rescuer. And a person will shift between all 3 in their lifetime. The thing is this, is that they're taught to see the world through the lens of one of those 3 things or all 3 of those things. Because if you're being raised by somebody who's a victim, there also has to be a persecutor and there also has to be a rescuer. This can be people, it can be circumstances, it can be things in a person's life. So they only have the ability to see through that lens. So they get stuck there because they don't see from a higher level of consciousness what other things can actually mean. And for most people, we're all raised on the physical level of life, which basically means that our parents and the people that raised us taught us what all the physical things in life mean, right? So I think I've mentioned this part before. When human beings showed up, we weren't given some kind of a book that says, here's what all the meanings to everything is. Human beings created those meanings, and they created those meanings out of the perceptions and experiences that they were having from one generation to another. But the only thing a group of people can do is pass that down to the next generation. So the next generation is going to do one of two things. They're either going to dig deeper into what was passed down, or they're going to see what was the truth, what was the falsehood in what I was told, and they're going to grow out of it. Most people don't grow out of it. They actually stay very tight to it. So they look at the world and they say, here's what all the physical meanings are in the physical world that I live in. So they literally don't have the consciousness to see anything other than those ideas. If somebody says, you're a victim because, in their mind, there's no other option, right? I'm a victim because this person did this thing to me, or this happened in my life. In their mind, there's no other option. And that's important to say, because it's not, like you just said a few minutes ago, it's not that there's not another option. It's just that they don't know that it's there, and they don't know how to strategically think in order to get out of the way that they're seeing the world right now. So in their life, they will vacillate between the victim to being the rescuer or to being the persecutor, because those are the only three ways that they know how to see the world. So if they're going to be the rescuer, they see everybody else as victims. They see other things as victims. And the only option they have for engagement with them is to rescue them or see them as a persecutor, which then puts them back into the victim mindset, right? And again, it's with things as it is as much with people. So it's a big deal. And when a person breaks out of it, it becomes very difficult to believe the extraordinary quantum leap that they can make in their life, because they never knew that those different kinds of results were actually there around them the whole time. That was my experience when I had my very first breakthrough. I could not believe that I was stuck for 2 years, and my income tripled in a month. And it was just because I changed these three things, this way of seeing the world, unbeknownst to me. I didn't know I was doing it. Nobody taught me to do it. It was almost by accident that I started looking at things a little bit different, and massively everything changed. So it's a real significant thing.
It's very significant. And I could give you a tangible example. I was training, I had one of my client friends, right? She asked me to go down. It was about a 2-hour commute for me at the end of the day to teach a class at night. When I tell you I got paid nothing, she had no one else to do it. And I'm a good friend, right? I'm loyal. So I'm like, you know what? I could do anything for 10 weeks. I'll go down. I'll do it. I don't mind helping. And so I went down, and this one woman, now remember, I have a 2-hour ride home. Class ended at 9.
Wow.
This one woman, and I worked all day, I taught my classes all day. So one woman said, Con, do you have 5 minutes? And I'm thinking, sure, right? Of course I have 5 minutes. She seemed to need help. And she went through about an hour of all of the abuse that she had taken within this organization. I knew the organization. I knew the leaders of the organization. They weren't bad people. So I'm hearing her side of it. And I said, you know what? Let's strategize. So I gave her some recommendations on how to navigate. And I said, next week I'll be back. So just let me know when we first get here, bring me up to speed, what you tried, what worked, what didn't. Maybe we could come up with another strategy. She felt very stuck. The next week, so now I'm driving home. I got home like at midnight, had to get up at work, right? But you do it, right? You do it to help people because it's the right thing to do. Well, the next week I went back, and she came in, and I said, so update me what it went through, why was going to, and literally almost verbatim, everything she had sent the week before, that whole victim, she had to tell me the whole story again. She was so stuck in her story. And, then I had to say to her, listen, I can't help you then. I can't do it for you. You have to do it. But you were having that same conversation. That's the definition of insanity. Yeah. She could not see what I was trying to show her. So clearly I wasn't equipped. This is maybe 15 years ago. I wasn't equipped to help her, David. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I can't help you because You're not even willing to be open to the concept that, let me try this one little baby step. So this is, I see it. I see exactly what you're saying. So now shift a little bit with me. So we learned this during childhood, right? This whole victim mentality. clearly this situation put her in this victim mantra, and she just kept repeating it and couldn't get out of it, right? She's stuck. What tools would you recommend for business owners or even people in careers that recognize they've been raised with this victim mentality, and how do they break out of it? And the naysayer, people listening, oh, this is nonsense. There, you know what? I've been handed a bad deck of cards, right? Bad hands in life.
Right.
What are the tools to help us get out of that? Clearly, I was not equipped.
Right. So here's the thing. When a person is raised in a victim mindset, the one thing that keeps them locked into it, right? Because everybody has perception, we all have the ability to see things differently. But a person that's in that victim triangle, they have an extraordinary need to be right. Okay. Because the victim mindset's created out of an unsafe situation, whether it's real or imagined, right? So you could have like a parent that's maybe they have a little mental illness, right? And there's not actually really bad things happening to them, but they perceive bad things are going to happen. Sure. So they install that fear in their children, and then that becomes the idea of a victim. All this stuff could happen. That's the only thing that they know. But what keeps them locked in is the need to be right. So this person that you're talking about, the reason that she couldn't see something is because she has to be right about the way that she sees it. It's not safe. Or in their mind, it might be, well, this is stupid. What also comes down to the idea that it's not safe to see things differently. And with all due respect to people that are having trouble with this, I get it. Over 30 years ago, I was in the same place. If you'd have told me this, I would have probably laughed at you, ridiculed you. This is stupid. You're an idiot, because I had such a need to be right at that time in my life. So in order to get out of it, how do you know that you're in it? You know that you're in it when people, things, and circumstances have more power than you do over the decisions that you make in your life. So the power that we have, which you referred to a little while ago, is extraordinary. There's nothing that we can't do, even beyond what people can see. We have the ability to do. But when we're not doing it because we think everything is in a certain way that keeps us from doing it, we know we're in the victim mindset. In other words, a person will say, I can't do that. I don't have the money. I can't do that. I don't have the time. I can't do that because I was dealt a bad deck of cards. I can't do that because I have this health issue. I can't do that because of my spouse. You don't understand what this situation is like. Yes. They're giving the power to everything else but themselves. And their number one unconscious job is to stay safe, because they think it keeps them safe, but it actually makes them extraordinarily vulnerable because they have no agency over their own life.
Yeah. It's tragic. It's really tragic.
It's sad, yeah.
We see it all the time. So, all right. So we're talking about choice and how people don't realize how powerful choice is. Can we go a little bit deeper now? What is the greatest power in that power of choosing, right? That we're always in control of our own life, right? Can we go a little bit deeper with that? Because this is important.
Yes. So by choice, you create your life. Now, a victim won't think that. A victim will think, no, my life has been created by other people's choices. So they will always think the only way that they could change their life is if they change other people or if circumstances beyond their control change. And this is a huge issue we have in the world right now, bigger than we've ever seen it, right? Because we take victims and they're holding them high like it's some badge of honor to be a victim. So how does choice play a role in this to get extraordinary results in a person's life? Yes. So first of all, we have to realize that a victim mentality keeps us strictly on the physical level of life. And the idea is that, yes, we can use our choice on the physical level of life, but that's not even where it's most powerful. Where it's most powerful is at the next level of life, which is the thinking level, okay? So when a person's a victim, they don't even know that they're not thinking. Everything they do is a reaction. There's no thought process actually going on in their mind, because the mind that they think that they're thinking with is actually being stimulated by an outside circumstance, and they're responding the only way that they can, which is by the program of that victim triangle. So they're not actually thinking. Although they will think they're thinking, they're not. For a person to be able to think, they have to be able to take anything that they're observing, and they have to be willing to be able to consider all sides of that thing. And they have to think from a higher truth about something, which means that it cannot just be the label that they put on it. They have to consider what's a truth beyond that. So that's also something that they have to learn. And that means that thinking beyond that is to really understand what things are in their essence, which one of the things that we teach is the natural laws of the universe, the 7 natural laws of the universe. They exist in all of the religious teachings around the world, and they're also in all science, okay? It is a way to look at something more holistically and actually see the truth in it. But so let me just give you one of these for a second and explain what the problem is. So there's a law called the law of polarity, which means everything non-physical and physical has multiple sides to it, right? Everything has an opposite, and it's equal in opposite. So if I look at something and I go, this that happened to me is bad, there's also a good side to it. But you talk to somebody who's in the experience of that bad, if they don't know how to think, they'll go, tell me what's good about it. Tell me how this is good. Tell me what's good that my husband left me, or this person robbed me, or I was raped, or somebody's taking the stuff you tell me what's so good about that, right? They're very insistent, right? The need to be right is engaged. They're afraid, right? They may have experienced some real trauma. I'm not saying that they haven't.
Yeah.
But from that perspective, they can only see one side of something. They literally don't have the ability at that point to see anything different. However, if I raise my thinking to a higher truth, that everything has an equal and opposite side, right? There is no non-physical thing or physical thing that doesn't have, so if it has a right, it has a left. If it has an up and a down, an in and an out, right? And here's the thing. So let me just pull this up here, right? So this is a little marker, okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It has a right and it has a left. Now, most people only see one side like this, and they believe that that's all that there is, right? So they don't, this is kept hidden from them, from their thought process. But because they believe that's all there is, the only opportunities they have in life are based on what it is that they actually see here. Now, if I say to them, the opposite side exists at the same time, and not only does it exist, Connie, it's connected. Here's what that means. It means, let's say you say, well, here's a perfect example. A person has an opportunity to do something, or they need to do something, and they go, I can't do it because I don't have the money. In their perception, because there's no money in their wallet, purse, or bank account, they say, I don't have the money. But what they don't realize is that the money is there at the same time. It has to be. It's the opposite side of the same thing. But this is where a person gets, either they're going to start to come out of this thinking, or they're going to go deeper in with their need to be right. Mm-hmm. They'll be like, show me. Where is it? You say it's here. That's ridiculous. Look at my bank account. Look at my credit cards. Look at my sales, or lack thereof. The money's actually not here. So they're stuck in that physical level of life only. They cannot see a higher truth. What's the higher truth in this situation? Here's what the higher truth is. Everybody on the planet has the same amount of money. Now, people think that's nuts when I say it, but bear with me for a second. I'm going to prove my point. Every dollar you will earn, I will earn futuristically in life, okay, is in the hands of somebody else, okay? So whether a person has money in their hands, or let's say they're in some part of the world where they're extreme poverty, they have absolutely no money, right? They're walking 5 miles a day to bring water into the village. They have no concept of it. The money is there for them just like it is for us. The difference between a business person who knows the money's in the hand of somebody else and knows how to bring it from somebody else to them is a level of consciousness that the person who is dirt poor doesn't have. but both have the ability to bring that money in, but it's not in their hand right now. Even if a person's a billionaire, it's not like they're walking around with bags of cash on their back. All of their money is in the hands of another person, even though they say it's theirs. The bankers got it, the stockbrokers got it, the investments got it. It's in the building. It's it's not in their hands. In order to move it from wherever it is into their hands, they have to think about, how do I actually get that money to move from one place to another? But Connie, if I don't believe it's there to begin with, I won't do that.
You don't even see the opportunity.
Don't even see the opportunity. So I will stay stuck. And that's where a business person's business crashes, where they don't make the sales, even if they have the consciousness to the level to have a business. But if they don't, their view of getting money is whatever their current relationship is. Maybe it is a social program, an entitlement. Maybe it is somebody is giving them money for, like donation, like charity. Maybe it's that they go to work for somebody else and that person gives them money. They have no concept of how money moves from one person to another, which you and I both know is sales, but because they don't understand that. And in many cases, the things that we do in business that allow us to make money, not only do they not understand that, they've actually been taught that those things are wrong, and it's not something that they want to be in their life. There are over 50 different ideas that people are raised with, that are exposed to, around the negativity of money, that they hear more than they do about positive ideas about money in their life. And I've tested this with audiences over and over and over again. I'll show them a list of like 50 different negative ideas about money, and I'll say, how many of these have you heard growing up? And without exception, almost the entire audience will say just about all of them. It's usually 97, 98%. I'll say, now tell me how many positive things, real positive ideas. And I've never seen anybody come up with more than 3. So it's 50 to 3, negative to positive.
Yeah.
That becomes a subconscious way of viewing the world.
Yeah.
So not only are they in the victim mindset, they think that there is literally something wrong with making money. Many times they think rich people are evil or they're greedy. In religious contexts, there is a suggestion that has been set out there by the church that money is a bad thing, that it's an evil thing to some degree. So it becomes this necessary evil we all have to deal with in our life. And it's like, well, as long as I'm not greedy, if I just fulfill the need that I have, that's the very best that I can do. So there's no resource inside this person to be able to see beyond the one side that they're seeing to expand their mind. So the idea is we have to enter into our consciousness a different level of truth, that as a resource, as a tool that will allow us to think differently. So we apply the resource or the tool to any situation. In the law of polarity, it would be, okay, I know that my experience is I only see this. It's the problem. It's the hurt. It's the anger. It's the thing that went wrong. It's the lack of something. But the law of polarity says there must be another side to it, and it must be connected. So now I can go, okay, let me be open to the idea that there's another side here. Let me sit with this and see if I can see it or find it. And that's when a person starts to get out. And there's 7 laws that allow people to actually do that, because they're laws of how we think about our world. And that'll allow a person to get out only if they want to get out. The need to be right, they'll be like, that's crazy. That's just mumbo jumbo. I don't want to hear anything about that. That's nuts.
And the ego tells us we have to be right, because if I'm right, then you're wrong. And that's what we're taught, right? There's a right and the wrong way to do things. But we know, right? There's multiple ways to do things. Yeah. GPS, right? Your ways, or like my husband and I, whenever it's so funny, even if I'm going up to a client, I still put it in, because if there's an accident, it'll reroute me. I don't even have to think about it. Right. So my husband and I, it's funny, we're going somewhere a distance. We'll both put it in. He uses Waze. I use Google Maps, I think. And then I'll be like, oh, mine says this, his says this. We're like, all right, go your way. So there's multiple, even on the GPS apps, there's multiple ways based on, that's exactly life. So there's not just one way to get from point A to point B. We have multiple ways, depending on our zone of genius, depending the resources we have, the people we know, the positive attitude on how we approach
limit
things.
of our imagination, right?
Exactly.
I mean, think about how we live today. We've changed everything that in the way that we live. A couple of hundred years ago, we didn't do anything the same way that we do today.
Yeah.
It's all changed, and it keeps changing more rapidly, more rapidly, more rapidly. So you're right.
Yeah. And it's funny because I remember when I first started in sales, I had gone for my licenses and I was sponsored by a company. It was Prudential. One of their offices, it was maybe a 40-minute commute for me, but I knew somebody, they got me in, right? I went for my licenses. They sponsored me. Well, when I came out, Dave, they had no position. And I had spent all this money. I had no income coming in. I'm like, well, what do I do now? So the regional down there said, well, go talk to this guy. 15 minutes from my house, another office. I didn't know anybody. Go interview. They had a spot. I took the job. Now I knew no one. So of course I was in my 20s. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Fast forward. That's where I met my husband. Had that mishap where I was furious. Like, you gotta be kidding me. But it all works out at the end. So that's my next question. It'll actually be our last question, I think, to explore. But that notion that, like I say, the universe always provides, right? How do you know, or how do you teach? We always get what we need. We just have to, like you said, you have to change your thinking to say it'll come, and then it actually comes. And I could give one example of that. I remember when I was doing this show, it's like 14 years ago. And I started, and so the producer, she would coach me, right, on how to be a better host. And one day she said to me, it's like the Jersey show. You only have people from Jersey. I go, well, who do you think I know? I only know people from Jersey. She says, you got to broaden it. Otherwise, the podcast isn't going to grow. So I'm like, oh, you're crazy. Okay. So at night, telling my husband this at dinner, and he goes, what are you going to do? I go, I don't know. I go, I'm leaving it to the universe. They'll make it work out for me, because I don't know what to do. Don't you know, within 2 weeks, all of a sudden I started getting these emails from these PR firms. And I had somebody from Hawaii, I had somebody from the UK. So like a month later, my producer says, oh, Connie, that was great. How'd you do it? I go, I have no idea. These PR people found me. I told the universe, hey, man, bring it to me, because I don't know what to do. I don't know what resources there are. That's a good example, right, of trusting, but you have to trust that it will happen. And then magically, right? Is it magic? You just have to be open to the concept. So share with me, what do you...
It's the way everything works in the universe. So first of all, the idea is that on the physical level, when we see something happen, we've been programmed to say, here's what caused this. Like with an accident, right? If you get into a car accident with somebody and then you ask the person that only sees the world on that level, especially from the victim mindset, what caused it? Oh, that jerk ran a red light and hit me. That's what caused it. I'll tell you right now, that's what caused it, right? But then there's a different level of cause, okay? Like, what caused you to be in the car to begin with, to be involved in the accident? And that's a place that most people don't want to go. So the idea then is to look at, well, how did I actually attract this into my life? Okay. So you just told a beautiful story about how you met your husband. It seemed like this was a bad thing that was happening, but here it is, you meet the love of your life. Like, that's how it works. Above that level is the level of imagination. And imagination is unique to human beings. We have the ability to form images in our mind. And when we do that, we have to realize we're tapping into the universal consciousness, the universal all. All the knowledge that ever was, ever will be is 100% present in all places at the same time. Everything that can be created is been created already in the universe. When we get an idea to manifest or create something in our life, we're tapping into that universal consciousness, right? A little baby's not born with the idea of a cell phone in its head, like Steve Jobs. They're tapping into another form of knowledge. And when they do that, they see something in their imagination. So then if that place, what you're saying is, if they're open, The universe will bring the way for it to happen every single time. There is nothing that you can imagine that you cannot have in your life if you let go of the victim idea and say, I'm open to the way of being shown this. And then it begins to show up in all different kinds of ways that seem to be magic, but that's the way it works. Listen, animals operate like this their whole lives. They operate by instinct, right? Animals aren't given a map and a GPS and go put 20 years in school to figure out how to do all the different things that they do. We don't see them stressed out. We don't see them afraid in the backyard, a bunch of squirrels scared. Where are we going to get enough nuts for the winter? They're not going to the psychologist. They're not on Prozac and Adderall and all this other stuff because they never question. They don't have the ability to question themselves or their environment. They just do what God programmed them to do, period. Human beings, we have the ability to choose, which gives us the ability to see things different. We can see the good and the bad, right? But our environment, if we're only programmed to see what's wrong with something, without also having a parent go, okay, so yes, here's the bad thing about this, but here's the good thing about this. We only learn to see the world one way, and then we stay locked into it. The second that door opens, everything in your life can change, and it can change dramatically. I always say this, we're born to be a success, and success is actually easy. We're making it hard because we don't actually understand how things work beyond our physical problems that we experience in life.
Yeah. And I remember it was a cool story. Somebody had interviewed like Michael Jackson, one of his songs, before he had died. And they said, how do you get this inspiration? And that particular song, he said, oh, I drove my producer crazy. 2:00 in the morning, I had this download. He called it divine download of whatever the tune was. So he calls his producer, sound guy, whatever, meet me at the studio. And the guy's like, dude, can we do it tomorrow? We can't do it tomorrow. We have to get it. I have to get it out of my head. And the producer said, why? Why can't it wait till like 8 a.m., 6 hours? And he goes, because if I don't do something with it, the universe is going to deliver it to Prince.
Yeah.
Publish the song. Right?
That's right.
But that's the essence of what we're talking about. It's these divine downloads, and we could choose. Again, it's choice, right, David? Yeah. We can choose to ignore it and go, that's not going to work. That's stupid.
Or say, there's a scripture that backs that up.
What?
There's a scripture that says God is no respecter of persons. And one of the meanings of that is if you think about it in the form of God's will, God is creating everything based on what God wants to create. But he sends it to the individual. If the individual does nothing with it, he sends it to another individual. I mean, that's a simplistic way of looking at it, but what you're saying in the way that it really works is absolutely true.
And it's hysterical. So that's why we poo-poo things. And then 2 months later, somebody ran with the idea.
That's right.
Like, that was my idea. Yeah, but you didn't do anything with it. So it was $1 million idea that you sat on instead of being proactive and say, hey, let me explore this. What's going on over here? Yep. We limit ourselves to our little pea. I call it my little pea brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Dave, thank you so much. Everybody, please, number one, check out Dave's podcast, The Successful Minds. Everybody needs a little inspiration, and these little tips, like just some of the examples that Dave gave. I hope you're sitting there going, oh, I never thought of that. See, your perspective has just expanded, and that's a beautiful thing. You're getting in the zone of genius, right? Check out the website, lifeisnowinc.com. I will put that in the show notes as well. And if you have any questions, email, it's tia@davidneagle.com, and she'll make sure she gets responses from Dave or whatever that you might need. But again, lifeisnowinc.com. And of course, The Successful Mind, great resource, free, that you guys can check out. Dave, thank you so much for being on for a second time. I'm always inspired after I talk to you, because it's actually simple. We make it complicated because we get in our own head to stop ourselves from enjoying and growing and being. And here's the other thing, right? Bad things happen to everybody. Look at COVID. I lost people that were close to me, friends that died way too early, right? COVID was COVID. It was bad. But now we're seeing some of that ripple effect of the, like you said, the two sides to that marker, right? Half was white, half was black. There's the two sides. So now we're seeing some of the benefits of COVID, like the expansion of business because we're on Zoom. And, we all had time to sit and reflect and explore things more deeply because we weren't in that rat race of running. So all of these things, there's so many positives, even though it was such a devastating time. There's the polarity. I love that. And that's just another example because bad things still, people go, oh, well, they don't know. They don't have everybody's had bad things happen to me. Right, You've had bad things happen to you. Right. We've had loss and tragedy. Nobody avoids that just because you have a more positive mindset or you're open to choices. Crap happens. It's how you respond or open yourself up to that shadow side, right? Like you said, that polarity of this is bad. What's the good side of it? And we have to look for it. We have to mine it.
But so think about this for a second. What if something that you perceive bad actually has to happen for you to have what it is that you say that you want, but because you perceive it as bad, you don't actually see the good in it? That happens all the time. So you were probably looking for a partner in life when you went and had this experience that you perceived was bad, but it needed to happen in order to get this guy to you.
That's right.
There it is. And that's with everything in our life.
That's right. We try to control it because we're control freaks.
We are.
It's not about control, man. We have control. I have control over me and how I live my life and the choices I make and my perspective. That's my choice. That's my control. But to think that I can control out there, crazy.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
David, thank you again, my friend. I always love spending time with you. I get very inspired. That's the best word I could choose right now. But yeah, I get inspired by you. So thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, don't go away yet. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are on your journey of change. Guests like David, he just gave you several things to work on. If nothing else, listen to the podcast. If nothing else, go to the website. That's your call to action. We don't have to make this complicated. Just go back and listen to the show, perhaps. You have to take action. With action comes reaction. And that's truly where the magic happens. But just start to think about our conversation, Dave and my conversation today. And truly, you are in control of your destiny. You have to choose to take that step. So listen to Dave's podcast. That's a good first step. Thank you all for tuning in. You've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman. You know that I am inspired that you join me every week. I love the numbers going up every week. It makes me find great guests like David so that I could continue to support you out there as you navigate change. I love you all. I'm honored that you're joining me, and I will see you next week. Have a week filled with magic, and you have control over that. Thanks again. Thanks again, Dave, for a great show. See you guys next week.